Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the TWNY podcast. Just a quick reminder that we are not professional medical personnel and TWNY is not a replacement for medical treatment. And as always, if you would like to be a guest on the podcast, head on over to our website at www.twny.life and reach out. I hope you enjoy the podcast, and remember, it's okay to not be okay.
Well, I've seen the devil's shadow underneath the moon. Keep that fire going, the sun is coming soon.
A huge thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. In 2022, I'm setting a new mental health goal, and I hesitate to say New Year's resolution because a lot of people don't like that, but it's basically what it is. And my resolution mental health goal is to be more disciplined, have a more disciplined mind. And that goes for, a lot of things, whether it be weight loss, any kind of temptations, just how I handle difficult situations, interactions with people. I want to have a more disciplined mind when going into those things. And we all have different ways of reaching our goals, our resolutions, mental health goals. But I want to tell you about one way that you guys can do that. And it's a healthy way to follow through on your mental health habits, and it's by working with a licensed therapist. We say all the time on the show that we're not therapists, and that's true. So that's why I'm super excited to be sponsored by BetterHelp, because they have over 20,000 licensed therapists that you can access just through your phone. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help, it's actual professional therapy, and it's done securely online. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. The best part about that is you can change therapists if it doesn't work out for you. If you're not vibing with the therapist that you've been matched with, you can change as many times as you need to get a new therapist, the one that works for you. It doesn't matter where you are, BetterHelp is available for everyone. It's available for clients worldwide. We have podcast viewers in India. Just looking at my stats, we have podcast viewers in India, the United Kingdom. This is available to you as well. And it is more affordable than traditional offline therapy. And financial aid is available if it still is a little bit daunting. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today. Visit betterhelp.com/TWNY. That's better, H-E-L-P, help, and join the over 2 million people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. You deserve to prioritize your mental health this year. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/TWNY. Thank you, BetterHelp, for sponsoring this episode. How you doing, Chris?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. It's really good to see you.
Yeah.
And I've been looking forward to this podcast definitely for quite a while, ever since we talked around that fire about you doing this. That was months ago.
Yeah, I know. It's been a long time in the making, so yeah.
For sure.
I'm glad to finally get on here. So
yeah, well, so for the viewers and the listeners, our guest on this podcast, Chris Workman, he's a real deal. I mean, joined the Army 2008. He's been on both sides of it. You were in the Rangers, and now you're in instructor training group at AMU. If you want to, introduce yourself a little bit.
Yep. So yeah, I'm Chris Workman. I'm 36. I grew up in pretty rural Vermont, oldest of 3. And my brother Bill, who we'll talk about in this podcast, was the middle kid. And then my little sister being the youngest. So yeah, grew up around Sugarbush and Fayston, Vermont when we were, quite a bit younger. And then mother and father got a divorce when I was about 7. And then we ended up moving up to Williston, Vermont, and rented a house on a dairy farm, which that was all right by us because there wasn't too much supervision. And so we were kind of out in the woods doing our own thing a lot, since my mom was working full time, trying to support us. And then so I went to Champlain Valley Union High School in Heinsberg, and then attended the University of Vermont for some time. Wasn't too happy doing that. And obviously my performance suffered as a result.
Mm-hmm.
Went to Champlain College for a little bit, studying business and economics, which I actually loved doing. I'm actually running my own side business now, and that's just something I like doing. But yeah, to some degree, I still didn't feel super challenged,
Mm-hmm.
and so I was working 2 full-time jobs at the time, working in a lab, processing blood work. And then I was doing some other stuff on the side. And then, I was just bored. I was making good money, but I was bored. And then,
Yeah.
2007, my brother actually ended up joining the military. And he'd always been pretty geared towards that. Um, Unbelievably intelligent, had an insatiable appetite for reading military history books and things like that. And then because he was colorblind, he couldn't go airborne. And so after his experience dealing with recruiters and everything like that at MEPS, he actually had convinced me to join the Army in 2008 with an option 40 contract. And so I ended up joining about a year after him, and
Mm-hmm.
went straight through Ranger Indoctrination program, and then got based at 3rd Battalion, 75th at Benning,
And
and was there.
that's what the option 40 is, right? That's the Ranger contract, right?
Yeah,
So
yep,
going in and
that's
then
correct.
going directly to Ranger school after the fact. Okay.
Yep. Yep. So back then it was called RIP, Ranger Indoctrination Program. Now it's called RASP,
Mm-hmm.
Ranger Assessment and Selection Program. That's all held at Fort Benning. But yeah, I ended up leaving there in 2020, kind of after I started getting promoted out of fun jobs or things that I think were exciting, getting deployed
Yeah.
constantly, and doing more stuff like that with the guys. I was doing more administrative stuff, more and more. And so that's just not what I like doing. It's not really
Yeah.
why I ended up signing up, for the Army. And so I ended up leaving there, got offered a job at the Army Marksmanship Unit with the instructor training group in July of 2020, and made the transition over there. So been there since, and loving it right now for the most part.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Just like
Now,
every job.
oh,
Yeah.
for sure. And it's funny you bring up the living the rural life and
Mhm.
then going to college, finding out,
Yep.
that's not really your cup of tea, and then eventually joining the military. That was my story there too, growing
Yeah.
up in the rural side of things. And I kind of felt like I needed to go to college. I don't know, I felt like that was the natural progression of my life because that's what I was kind of told growing up.
Mhm.
Even though
Yeah.
I
That's what
secretly
everybody's
wanted
told.
to join the military because I have lots of members of my family join. So I really wanted to, but I went to college first and I just partied and drank the money away for the first year. And I was like, I'm wasting my time.
Yeah. Well, I think it's tough for younger males, especially because we've almost got no direction like in life at that time, at that
Right.
age. And so, going to college and making this huge commitment to what you're going to do for the rest of your life, it's tough. And like, it really, in retrospect, it doesn't surprise me that I basically like flunked out of the University of Vermont because, I was definitely wasn't focused on what I should have been.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, when my brother Bill had convinced me to join the Army, I really had no idea what I was getting into going to Ranger Regiment. And eventually, after like a couple of years, it turned into like, hey, this is what I want to do for a career. This is awesome. It's exciting. It's fun. It's super challenging. It's physical. There was just a lot of things that I could have kept doing there,
For sure.
if they would have let me. So yeah. So
Well, that's awesome, man. And I think that's a good, that's a lot of experience right there. That's a lot of life experience. I think you you have a unique perspective into a lot of things coming from the rural background, heavily military background, especially with what we're talking about. I think, you have a lot of insight into that. So I'm super excited to dive into that. So Now you said you were going to go into your brother Bill, and you were just kind of talking about him. He
Yep.
got you, so he got you into joining the military, right?
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll go into that
Yep.
a little bit. Like, so what did you? Was it kind of something that you looked up to him, or was that how did that
Yeah.
go?
So he was my little brother, but yeah, obviously like a ton of respect. He was
Hmm.
super intelligent. Uh, I mean, seriously, one of the most intelligent dudes I've ever met. Super bright kid, and he'd be constantly getting into arguments and debates with even school teachers, like super left wing school teachers,
Yep.
and he would shut them down and come up with these arguments, and they literally had no rebuttal. I mean, they would sit there just like jaw open, just sitting there like there was no response because he was just
Yeah.
so eloquent and intelligent. And so I think at the time, him and I were just looking for big life changes, and with his experience dealing with like MEPS and
Hmm.
some of the kind of like car salesman type recruiters and stuff like that, he was like, "Hey, this is what you should do: join, do an option 40, and go straight through basic airborne, and then end up at RIP and get attached to a battalion at 75th." And so he kind of had convinced me to do it, but I think both him and myself at the time in our life, we were just looking for a big life change, and that kind of
Yeah.
just pushed me over the edge, so to speak.
Nice. Would you think that? Do you think that maybe that's a positive out of the? Because you mentioned that young men don't have a lot of direction, or some men
Mm,
suffer from not having that
yeah.
definite direction in their
Well,
lives, and that might be a positive from it. Is making those big
yeah.
changes like joining the military, or what I mean, taking those risks.
Well, yeah, I think I had suffered from both. It was both a combination of direction and then
Hmm.
some sort of outlet.
Yeah.
Because like I was getting in some trouble.
Hmm.
I actually had gotten arrested when I was 17. For assault and some other stuff. And so at the time, it was good. It was good. I needed some discipline in my
Yeah.
life, and needed I don't know, I just needed a big ass kick. And like, to be
Yeah.
frank, I needed something, without having my dad around too much, and like not having, parental figures
Hmm.
around in my life. Like I kind of figured a lot of stuff out on my own. And so it was good. In retrospect, I wouldn't have changed anything.
Yeah.
I think I would have done maybe a couple things differently in my career, military wise.
Hmm.
But it was awesome. It was a great place, and I was
Yeah.
extremely fortunate to do some really good stuff. So
Well, yeah, in the army, they're definitely gonna not have any problem giving out the ass kicking that you need.
yeah.
Whether that be
Mm,
mental or physical, they're gonna give it to you.
yeah, we can talk about the mental stuff later, but
100%.
yeah. Mhm.
um, yeah. So you deployed, and I wrote this down, but I still can't believe it. I
Mhm.
gotta make sure. You deployed
Yep.
10 times in 10 years. You said.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's pretty typical for Ranger Regiment. Our deployments are typically a little bit shorter, 3 to 4 months.
Hmm.
But it's pretty cyclical. So like you'll end up deploying for 3 to 4 months, you get back, you go on a short block leave, and
Hmm.
then you do a training cycle, which basically certifies you to do everything you're supposed to be doing overseas. Um, Essentially. And then you do a bunch of exercises and things like that to prepare you, and then you do that for 6 months or so,
Hmm.
and then you go on block leave again, and then you go on deployment, and it just happens over and over and over and over, and you just keep doing it. So yeah, I did 10 in 10 years, which I'm like pretty proud of. And
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm and honestly, it was just because I was lucky, like right place, right time, right section in the unit,
Hmm.
to be able to take advantage of that. It's not, I ended up working like really, really hard, but I don't think I worked harder or was, better than anybody else or anything like that there, especially. It's just
Yeah.
right place, right time. We got lucky. So
And I'm sure you'll get into this, but if you don't mind me asking, the
yeah.
the tempo when you are deployed, you said it's 3 to 4 months at a time. Is the
Yep.
tempo, is it pretty high tempo when you're over there? Or is it, because I was
Um,
deployed, but I was in Kuwait, so you imagine the tempo was pretty
yeah.
chill. Sat in a tent for 9 months
Yeah.
basically.
So without kind of violating OPSEC or anything,
For sure. Yep.
yeah, it was back in the day. I probably for and it kind of came in cycles. Like you'd have one that was like super super busy, and you were rolling out, every other night or
Hmm.
something. And then you'd have one that was super slow. Winter rotations are typically pretty slow. Nobody wants to fight in the snow. But yeah, during the summers it usually was pretty busy. But again, it was
Yeah.
it was cyclical. Like sometimes you'd be super busy, sometimes you wouldn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, it kept me busy for sure.
But man, with that kind of timeline, cyclical is the word you used. With that kind of timeline, 10 years. I mean, there's not a lot of downtime there. There's not a lot of time to sit back and really like soak in what's going on, what you're going through. You know what I mean? It's kind of just back to back,
Yep.
get the job done, right?
Hmm. Yep.
That seems like that seems like that would be hard. It seems like that would be, I mean, and it probably not at the moment. It doesn't seem like,
Yeah.
you're just doing it. You're in the moment, you're just getting the job done. It doesn't seem like it would be, that hard, but I imagine thinking back on it, that
Yeah.
maybe some time to
Um,
like think about what you're going through, whether that be within your team, whether that be what's going on, you know, in combat, stuff like that. Some time to think about it, I think would be good.
yeah, probably in retrospect now, but at the time I was like a younger guy.
Hmm.
I've got no wife, no kids. I don't have any obligations.
Yeah.
I don't have those stressors back home, and so at the time I was loving it. It was great. I would
Yeah.
have kept doing it for as long as they would have let me. But yeah, in retrospect, it probably not too healthy of a lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Um, so you mentioned yesterday when we were kind of talking before this about mental health kind of being a taboo. And just
yep.
kind of jumping into the meat of this, I feel like, I mean, you're absolutely right. I think even with all the training that we get, even with all the, basically, even with everyone saying that it's not, it still remains a taboo. And especially in the military, it does. What are your
Yep.
like? What are your thoughts on that? Especially coming from where you come from in the military, how do you
Mm.
see that?
Ooh, man. Yeah. So, um, where do I start? But yeah, I think for soft especially, it's a big taboo, but nobody wants to talk about it. Especially with all the stuff that's coming out about you know TBIs and their relation to PTSD and things like that. Nobody wants to talk about it.
Hmm.
And without getting too much into it, there was some stuff that had happened there. Probably that they should have taken better care of some guys, for sure,
Hmm.
and didn't happen. And so at the same time, the army and regiments no exception. It's this bureaucratic beast, dude. It's going to keep moving on
Hmm.
regardless of whether you're there or not. And so I personally, kind of what I realized like some time ago was that in order to be like have that warrior mindset, you have to take care of yourself physically, and it's equally as important to take care of yourself mentally. And so some dudes, it's just super hard for them to go out and ask for help. And it's super hard for them to go talk to somebody, especially a mental professional. And they say it won't affect your career, but it's like the minute they start pulling you off deployments because you're not mentally healthy, it's like, dude, that affects your career. So
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. But what's more important, like your mental health or going on another
Hmm.
rotation? probably your
Yeah.
mental health.
Long
So
term, definitely the mental health.
yeah, especially if you've got if you've got obligations at home and you've got, kids and you got a wife,
Hmm.
like your life isn't really your own anymore. Like you have obligations to those people. So um but yeah, I think it's important to seek help, and whether that's a mental professional or not, like
Hmm.
you can make that professional decision yourself, but um those burdens, you need to share those with people. And sometimes, like, at the same time, it's like something that I realize, and like we'll get into it in a bit, but um something I realize is like their burdens and like their demons are not yours.
Hmm.
So sometimes it's hard for you to understand like what people are going through. But their stressors aren't yours.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's hard to comprehend like what they're going through and like why they're stressing it so much, or why they've got PTSD issues and things like that. But
Yeah.
um they're not you. So
Well, yeah, and I mean it's not like they get a cut on their arm. You can kind of imagine how that feels if you've been cut on the arm. You can see it and say, "Oh, that I can kind of imagine how that feels because I've been cut on the arm or I've been cut on the leg or something. I know how that physical pain is feeling." But again, like you said, you have no idea what's going on in their head. You don't know how something that might seem minor to you is affecting them because it might be stacking on something else. It might be, a bunch of stuff, and that's just the last piece that's breaking the camel's back right now.
yep.
Um, when so we just recently did suicide awareness training
Mhm.
in our unit, in all military units. For people who don't know, they go through all different kinds of training, whether that be sexual harassment and assault prevention, equal opportunity, and suicide awareness and prevention. And it's not, I don't think for me it's a jumbled mess in my opinion. I'm looking at the training, and it is not. I don't think it's getting done what it needs to get done because it's graphs, it's charts, it's all kinds of arrows pointing in all kinds of different directions with vignettes and stuff like that. And for me, I just don't feel like that's what people need. And I was kind of curious if to get your opinion on that, because I don't know. I've only gone through this kind of training, like kind of like a garrison type training. I don't know if it's the same type of training in every unit, um, or if they do more tailored stuff in like the Rangers or anything like that for mental health.
No.
No.
No. So and they do some of the same stuff where it's like,
Mhm.
they do the semi-annual thing where you go do your sit down in a big auditorium, and they kind of lecture you and tell you, hey, like, if you need help, you can go seek it over here or
Yeah.
whatever. Go talk to a chaplain, and whatever else. The one thing I would say is it's just like a lot of other things in the military. Like, if you want to be the subject matter expert at
Mhm.
something, like, you can't rely on the military to do it for you. And it's the same with mental health. Now there's plenty of outlets like
Mhm.
that you can seek, and plenty of resources. Like the chaplain at 75th has always been like really, really great, to everybody, and so things like that. There's definitely like really good things.
Right.
But it's this big machine that will just keep on moving. They don't,
Yeah. Regardless of how good it is, they're going to keep going. You
yeah.
know.
So they can't really stop. They can't really stop just for one dude. And it kind of seems like it lacks empathy, I guess. But at the same time, it's like, we've been fighting a war for 20 years, like, and we're
Yeah.
going on rotations one time a year. It's like, dude, you can't pause. You can't hit pause.
Oh,
So
for sure. I kind of thought, and I was just thinking this actually today, um, because I was kind of trying to figure out. I was upset at the training because I was like, man, this training sucks. I was like, this is no good. But I was also like,
yep.
what can they do? You know what I mean? I was
Yeah.
like, what can they do? Because I know they want to. The Army wants to. There's articles put out constantly from like Army Times. I'm seeing articles all over Instagram, Facebook about how the Army wants to solve this suicide problem.
Mm.
But again, how do you do it? I thought that maybe something like what we're doing here, and I'm not volunteering myself, but something like what we're doing here might be helpful to other people. If in the training they got real stories from people, that might be beneficial than just looking at a graph. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that would give people is maybe the courage to say something. You know, if they've got depression issues or PTSD issues, things like that, they might have the courage to reach out and get
Mm-hmm.
help if somebody else did that in like a public setting, maybe, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I mean, it might be, and man, I don't know. It's one of the biggest things I think, the issue with the military and like SOF and things like that is that, um, it's extremely frustrating, and you can't let that get you jaded and basically create this downward spiral. Um, you know, and there's a few things like, you know, job gratification is huge. Like I don't mind working hard,
Mm-hmm.
and I never have, but um I think job gratification is a major thing that it's an institutional problem with the military and SOF and things like that. And I don't see it changing anytime soon. So, you know, you have all this stuff where it's just like all these things that are just a worthless time suck. And it's just
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, this is detracting from me actually doing my job. Because,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you want to get into like the politics and all the stuff, and it's just like, you know, you know what I bet the Chinese aren't doing? Mandatory training. You know what the Russians probably aren't doing? Mandatory training, like
Right.
all this stuff. You know, and they try to say it's like for operational readiness and all this stuff, and yeah, I guess to some degree it is, but
Yeah.
um, you know, I don't see it.
I
So
think you can make anything sound like that in a presentation. You can make it sound like it is good for operational readiness. But I think, yeah, in practice, it like you said, it's a really great time suck, you know, um,
yep,
and that decreases from the job satisfaction, like you were saying. So or
yep,
gratification. Yep.
yeah.
Um, so basic. So while you've been in,
Mhm.
has it been the same? Has mental health, because over time, you know, they've tried to do their trainings, they've tried to do the thing, and there has been a shift in how we view mental health. But over time, since 2008 to 2022, have you seen it mental health issues in the military go up or down or both?
I don't know. I'd have to look at some numbers, but my guess is it was probably about the same.
Hmm.
Mental health issues. I think we're just more aware of it now. And so even if the numbers might be significantly inflated or higher now, I think it's just because we're more aware of it.
Right.
And you know, with like social media and things like that, you can, and it's crazy because like you never saw this stuff like even 5 years ago, where people were putting military units like on blast on social media and like
Hmm.
somehow getting away with it. And it's a good thing and it's a bad thing, because now grievances can be aired out, and like problems with toxic leadership can be aired out and things like that. However, it almost turns into like the boy who cried wolf. It's like all these problems are getting aired out, and it's like really some of those. It's just like
Yeah.
these aren't true issues that we need to be addressing, and
Hmm.
that we're spending all this time addressing. And so I don't know. It's a catch 22. There's some good
Hmm.
stuff and there's some bad stuff coming out of it, but
Definitely. Definitely. I've seen some of them too. I've seen some of the posts because I follow some of them, you know, and they'll come out with and they'll
mm,
say, "Oh, I can't believe this leadership's doing this," and it'll be just a standard text for like accountability, you know?
Mhm.
And
Yep.
it's like, that's
Yeah.
just basic Army stuff. You know, that's not the stuff we
Yeah.
should be focused on.
Hmm. Yep. It's like you should not be complaining about things like that at all.
For sure.
So
For sure. Well, man, I think so. You told me that you were kind of doing some looking into this stuff, some research, and that you had maybe some info. You had some stuff that you were kind of researching on.
no, not well. So I talked to some friends and family,
Hmm.
and really it's kind of why we're here, doing this podcast right now. Um, so first, I want to say I haven't talked about this really since 2013, and but trauma needs to be shared, and my thoughts on it were, if I could potentially help somebody out, somebody overcome some obstacles, or whatever else that,
Hmm.
we should probably do this podcast. So, haven't talked about it since 2013, but let's rip that band-aid off.
Let's
So,
just rip it off, man.
yeah. So back in February 2013, I took block leave to head home to visit some friends and family, and I'd spent about 2 weeks at home. So I'd driven home from Georgia. That's about an 18-hour trip. So um, my brother Bill, he was a little down during that time. I could kind of tell he had just gotten out of the military, and he really didn't have a great plan in place for when he transitioned out of the military.
Hmm.
And so, anyways, at home in Vermont, visiting them, and in March, on 8 March, I ended up coming back to Georgia, drove back, and got a phone call that night from my sister, and she was crying, and I could immediately tell something was very wrong. Um, so, anyways, my brother had shot himself that day, and I had literally just seen him,
Hmm.
2 days prior. So I tried to book a flight back home immediately and was having trouble doing that. So uh, that I believe that was a Sunday, and so the following morning I ended up getting right back in the truck and driving back to Vermont, another
Hmm.
18 hours. Um, so that was probably one of the longest trips of my life. 18 hours to sit there and self-reflect,
Hmm.
and a lot of mixed emotions in the direct aftermath of that happening. And I ended up crying for like hours on the way home, and I would just say, I'm sorry," over and over
Hmm.
and over. Uh, and so, my mind was kind of playing some tricks on me. I was hoping that it was just some, cruel, messed up joke that my mom and sister were playing on me, or my brother, or something like that. And but it definitely was not. Trying to find some way to make it not real or not possible.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's my story, and that's why we're here tonight, pretty much, for the most part.
Man,
So
I'm sorry to hear that, man.
mhm.
It I know I understand that feeling because when I like in my situation, it was kind of the same deal. You know, you find out about it and it's just like you're trying to hold on to any kind of hope that kind of works its way into your mind. You know, even if it's completely
Yep.
unrealistic, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe she'll hold on a little bit longer in the hospital, you know.
Mhm.
And that's that's rough, man. And I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Mhm. Yep. So yeah, so your question about kind of things I'd looked into, after agreeing to come on the podcast and things like that, I'd hit up a bunch of friends and family, real close friends and family that had been aware of everything that had gone on, and had known Bill. I hit everybody else up, and I was like, hey, look, I asked them some questions. Like, if you were a listener on the podcast, what would you want to hear? What would
Mhm.
you want to talk about? And then, kind of what advice would you want? Especially like somebody, and from both sides, like somebody that's like going through depression, somebody that lost somebody to suicide,
Mhm.
and then, things like that. Like, what should you do in the aftermath, and some things like that. So, um, yeah, I just tried to compile as much as I could from all these close friends and family.
That's awesome. And I mean, were they pretty open to doing that? Were they pretty
Mhm.
receptive to that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, they. I don't think they'd be my friends otherwise. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. Well, I guess I'm still kind of thinking about what you just said. I'm kind of reflecting on your story a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, how how have you worked through this? Like, how have you been able to, you know, find strength through all this ever since that happened?
Oh man, it's rough. Like, especially and I'm sure you experienced the same thing. On his birthday, um, during holidays, it's pretty rough too.
Hmm.
Um, or even just like successes in your life, important things that happen in your life that you could wish you could share with that person. Um, it's rough not having them here. And so one of the things I try to do is I try to live my life, as if he were here. Like, would he be proud of me in what I'm doing? Would he not be proud of me in my inaction,
Hmm.
in some situations? And so, with that being said, I think when you lose somebody, especially to suicide and things like that, don't let their loss be in vain. Like, live your life, and try to do things that would make them proud of you, and do that daily. Try to find something daily that would cause those loved ones to be proud of you. And so that's kind of, yeah, that's kind of how I look at life. And that that whole incident, Bill killing himself, like, changed my perspective on a lot of things.
Hmm.
So, one of those being, relationships. So, relationships with people, um, you need to treat people right, and you need to support the people that you love, and you need to support those people, and the people that you love, the people that love you. You need to be supportive of them, and
Hmm.
then, tell them that you love them, and you need to try to do everything you can to help them and to make their life successful as well. Like, I think hindsight's 2020, right? Like, I could have done everything in my power to try to change those events, and it still may not have mattered. However, I would do anything, and I mean fucking anything, to change that course
Hmm.
and to get him back. So that's how I look at it. Like, with other relationships with people in my life, like, if they were gone tomorrow, like, what would I have done to try to, like, change that?
Yeah. Like, what could I do
And
today? Yeah.
yeah, exactly, 100%. Yeah, it's like, how much money how much money would it take? Fucking all of it, dude.
Hmm.
Like, all of it. So, um, yeah, things like that. And I really try to reach out to people too. Like, if I can tell somebody's having even a minor problem,
Hmm.
I reach out to those people. Just say, hey, what's up? Even a text, or something like that. A text, even a short phone call, it can make a huge difference. Um, and even to, like, strangers too. Like, if I'm in the store or whatever,
Hmm.
like grocery store, and I'm like, I don't know. I probably should take another Myers-Briggs test and see, like, what my personality type is. I don't know. But like, I'm fairly outgoing for the most part, but I think it
Hmm.
depends, like, what kind of mood you're in. But it doesn't matter. Like, even if I'm in a bad mood, like I'll go out to the store and be like, oh, hey, how are you? To like, just strangers or like even cashiers or like somebody
Yeah,
bagging your groceries or whatever else. And a lot of the time you'll like end up striking up conversations with, complete strangers, and you don't know what sort of significance or impact that has on their life. So
absolutely.
yeah, so I try to live my life that way from now on. Yeah, obviously I think sometimes we get a little complacent with,
Hmm.
daily living and daily life. We kind of forget about that, but I really, really try not to.
I think that's amplified for introverted people. I'm a very introverted person. I like my privacy.
Yep.
I like,
Yeah.
I,
Yep.
I find a lot of pleasure just being at home alone.
Yeah.
um, so, and I've been kind of doing that same thing too,
Hmm.
where, and that's honestly ever since, Ashley, that's my cousin.
Yep.
Ever since that happened, because I had remembered there were times where she would be posting stuff on Facebook, or she had been saying stuff that it's just like, it sounds like really negative, depressing things, and I
Hmm.
didn't reach out like I should have. And so now, even
Yep.
if it's someone I haven't talked to in 7 or 8 years, I see something negative they post or something like that, I'm reaching out to them and I'm saying, "Hey, how
Yep.
are you doing? Is everything all right?"
Yep.
Um, and you're right. It's just, even though in the moment I might be forcing myself to do it because, like I said, I want to just not talk to anyone and be myself. But um, it's a good thing, and I think I'm starting to see the benefit from doing it.
Yep. So that brings up a good transition to this.
Hmm.
Um, so one of the people I ended up speaking with, she's actually a sports psychologist for 75th, and obviously, like I'd been talking to her a bunch about sports psychology and mental management type stuff with shooting sports. But I thought it was probably important to hit her up and see if there was any topics that we should cover during the podcast. And so one of the things she had kind of relayed to me was so helping others. Social support and connectivity is very important, especially when feeling down and depressed.
Hmm.
Research shows that the defeat response, or feeling like there's no point anymore, is reversed by the very act of a depressed or suicidal person reaching out and helping another person or even an animal in need. So dogs help lower blood pressure as well. So
Hmm.
you could go get a rescue animal and it might help you out.
Yeah.
But it feels counterintuitive to help others when you yourself is in need, but it helps reverse the downward spiral. In fact, it triggers bonding hormones, which naturally reduce stress. So I just read that off from something she had relayed to me. So yeah, I think that's pretty important. But I think helping other people out,
Hmm.
it can only be positive. Like they'll want to help you out in turn.
Yeah.
And yeah, what is it? What do they say? Birds of a feather flock together.
Yeah. Yep.
So
Yep.
it's like people that are enthusiastic about helping each other out. It can only be positive. So
It's awesome that you bring that up, because you brought the science to it, which I think is good, because I've had
mhm,
two guests on the podcast who have mentioned um, part of the reason why they like to help people is for themselves.
mhm,
And they, they see it as, they're like, well, I wonder if that's selfish, or, but that's, they're kind of getting that feeling. They don't have the science to explain it, but they were talking about how, hey, like, I like helping people sometimes because it helps me. It helps
yep,
me feel better when I'm going through downtime. That's pretty cool. I didn't know all the science behind it.
mhm,
I mean, I knew that,
yep.
if you get a dog, he's going to make you feel better, but
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, I probably follow way too many dog pages on Instagram.
yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
yeah. But yeah, so there's that. And then let's see what else kind of had helped me through that time. Oh man, I think during the direct aftermath, I think one thing that's kind of important to mention is I really did not take the proper amount of time to like mourn. Um,
Mm.
it was 2 weeks of emergency leave back home, and I was still in so much shock. I think that he was gone, that he actually killed himself, and then trying to support my mom and be strong for my mom and my sister,
Hmm.
deal with the memorial, deal with spreading his ashes, um, you know, deal with funeral costs. I mean, you name it. It was like all these distracting things, and then right back at work 2 weeks later.
Hmm.
And in fact, they actually called me back early so I could come back and sign counseling statements. Um,
Really?
so yeah, dead serious. So I was pretty irritated about that. And
Absolutely.
then, but it was, yeah, it was one of those things. I think it's important to find time to properly mourn,
Hmm.
and go through that emotional process, that cathartic process that will help you kind of heal. Because I definitely did not do that, and
Hmm.
I think it was more painful in the following months to come after that, and and I don't know if that was a direct result of just not handling it the proper way and kind of the way I should have directly after.
Yeah. Did you find that things would reopen those wounds? Since, like, if you don't take the time to mourn, like you say, um, and you kind of push it aside, did you find that there were other things that would just kind of open those wounds the following months, and it would just kind of make it
Mm,
worse, or at least the same amount of pain that you were feeling when it happened?
that's a hard question.
Hmm.
I don't know. It probably,
Yeah.
but I don't know. It's still super painful. Like every once in a while, something will just like trigger me, and
Hmm.
some big reminder of Bill, something.
Yeah.
Like the other night, I actually got online and I looked up his obituary and looked up a lot of things that people had written on there. Because he had worked at Walter Reed, and I actually did not know uh, the kind of the impact that he had on a lot of people's lives there at Walter Reed,
Hmm.
working in the ER. The positive impact that he had on a lot of other people's lives, and so there was a lot of responses from colleagues and some peers from Walter Reed. Um, this girl that he had gone to school with, Aubrey, she had written something that was really really nice and just reminded me of Bill and
Hmm.
things like that. So I don't know. It's really hard to say like whether it's just as painful now. I mean, I'd say so, yeah, but I don't know if that's a direct result of just not going through that proper mourning process. I think it's just part of the
It's
process.
just part of the
I don't
process.
think,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think anything's going to be, normal from here on out, you know?
Hmm. Um, cause and the reason I asked that is because, like, for my what happened to me, it was, I think part of it was kind of, I didn't take the time to mourn. I know I have eventually gone through it in my own ways. But I was shocked, and there was a night of mourning that, I was, just trying to mourn in a bottle doesn't really work. But um, after the
Agreed.
fact, it would be, I would try and push it out of my mind because I was like, I got other stuff to do. I have to, I have things that I need to take care of at home. I need to do this kind of stuff. And I would see, and even nowadays, someone does it. A friend of hers will post a picture of her and say, "Oh, I miss you," because this is something that related to them. They post a picture, and it's like, then I got to go through it all over again in my head. And it's like, it's getting some, it's starting to get better, But for a while, it was like, every 2 to 3 weeks, someone would post something and there'd be a picture of it and it would just take me right back to it. You know what I mean? That's why I ask, is because I think part of that is because I didn't take the time from the beginning, because I feel like it's kind of a small thing just seeing a picture. But man, it was definitely affecting me for a while.
Oh, yep. I definitely understand that pain. I think the way I kind of cope with it now is when something like that happens, I try to really turn that around into something positive.
Hmm.
So I try to remember, obviously, like we're gonna miss these people for the rest of our lives. And I really miss the fact that I can't share a lot of things with them.
Hmm.
And with Bill and like with Ashley and things like that.
Hmm.
But I think I think it's easier to kind of cope with it if you turn it around into something positive. So, Bill liked hiking and like mountaineering and climbing and things like that. So like anytime I'm out in the woods, anytime I'm hiking around Pine Mountain or whatever else, like I'll think about him and I'll think, and obviously I miss him, but he'd want to be out there with me.
Hmm.
So I try to turn those around into positive thoughts as much as possible.
That's good.
Not so much feel depressed about it or sad about it. They're
Definitely.
gone and there's not too much we can do about it. We can't change the past, especially something super significant like that.
Yep. You have to, and you just kind of have to learn to work with it. Like you're saying, you can't change it,
Yep.
and you got to figure out ways to mentally work with it. And I think, yeah, turning those memories or those events into more of a positive, like
Yep.
the hiking you said, is a good idea. And give me one
Yeah.
second. I'm gonna
Sure.
we'll definitely edit all this out, but my cat is in here and
Oh man.
Kitty, come here. Go outside. Come on. Crazy cat. All right.
Mhm.
Yep. I have the room sound treated. So when he
Mhm.
opens the door, it messes with the sound treatment, so it doesn't make it sound as good.
I gotcha.
All right.
Yeah, it's actually interesting you talked about uh using alcohol or drugs to kind of cope with
Hmm.
depression and things like that. So um that's actually something I wanted to talk about on the podcast. Um so when they did an autopsy on Bill, his alcohol content, it wasn't it wasn't super elevated. It was about the legal limit.
Hmm.
Um so I don't think that there was enough alcohol in his system to um completely mess with his perception and
Yep.
his decision making process. However, it may have, and I don't know. And this is the thing I'll never know because he never left a note or anything else. So which makes it even harder
Hmm.
to kind of understand. But uh, he either drank and then made the decision to do it because he was under the influence of alcohol, or
Hmm.
he decided to do it and then drank enough to psych himself up enough to do it. And so, in retrospect, after that, I didn't touch a drop of alcohol for over a year,
Hmm.
and I wanted absolute clarity of the whole situation. And kind of my thoughts with it. And obviously, I didn't want depressants in my system for obvious reasons. And yeah, I didn't touch alcohol for a whole year after that. It kind of turned me off from the whole thing. So,
For sure.
and to me, I don't think, you know, getting shit faced is a great way of celebrating somebody's life.
No.
So personally, that's kind of something I think, soft in the army in general has an issue with. They just glamorize alcohol, and
Yeah.
especially when there's a lot more issues caused by alcohol consumption
Hmm.
than not. It's kind of a problem that I see. But
No, definitely. And when you have a culture that, like you said, glamorizes it, then you have the guy to your left, to your right, that might not be the best person to be using alcohol,
no,
or because they're going through something you don't know, but you're
mhm,
glamorizing it, and then they're yeah.
yep. So yeah, it's just some advice I'd put out there, probably, at least for first couple days or that week, afterwards,
Hmm.
or if you're having issues, yourself with depression or PTSD, it's, you probably need to do everything you can to just not touch the bottle for
Yeah.
sure. So, and even if you don't think it affects you, I mean, it does. It's a depressant. Like it affects you for sure. You just don't realize it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, oh, and yeah, absolutely. When and I kind of laugh at this just because I was self-aware enough when I was mourning. We got back that night, and I was with my other cousins, and we were just we were getting shit faced drunk. That was at
yeah,
the moment. I felt like that was the only thing that I could do to help myself, and I was dumb, but I was getting completely drunk, and I started crying, and there was a point where I couldn't stop. And I actually thought about it in the moment, and I was all like, why can't I stop?
yeah,
And that was, it's depressing. It amplifies
yep,
those feelings.
yep,
Even if you
yep.
don't want to, it'll amplify the feelings.
Mhm. Yep, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, I drink now a little bit.
Hmm.
So I do like bourbon and and beer, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's one of those things. I just, especially in that moment in the aftermath, I was just like, just totally turned off.
Hmm.
But I think people kind of need to understand the effects that has on you. It's like, plus, getting drunk to solve problems. It's like, well, those problems are still going to be there when you sober up.
Yeah.
So it's probably a little more beneficial to
Handle them when
abstain.
you're when you're
Yeah.
full capability.
Yeah. It's better to abstain and then solve those problems. But yeah, just something I wanted to
Hmm.
talk about on the podcast for sure.
Absolutely, man.
So, yep.
So, I mean, just out of curiosity, what else? I mean, what else did you? Because you talked to. It sounds like you talked to quite a few people, which
Mhm.
I think is awesome. And you found some really good sources to talk to, people who have been through it, are in the field of psychology, things like that.
Yep.
What else have you found? What else did you go, like, who else did you talk to?
So yeah, I talked to a bunch of friends that I'm pretty close with, and that
Hmm.
that it, were aware and knew kind of what had gone down. And um, let's see. So yeah, so I think one thing that somebody had brought up was, is it realistic to catch all the signs? And what's it like to bear that burden? You know, what's it like to acknowledge that suicide can't always be preventable?
Mm.
And so that one to me was a big one because, I think, and obviously it's a retrospect again, and, hindsight's 2020. I recognized the signs, but I could have done a little bit more. He had texted me a couple times in the days prior, and I'd been like super short with him, and didn't really respond like I should, like a loving, caring brother. And
Hmm.
so I think it's important to try to do everything that you can. Um, but to me personally, it's like there's some guilt like I'll always live with. And I don't think there's anything that's going to change that. And I think you have to kind of learn to just be able to deal with it and accept it for what it is.
Hmm.
That, even if you had done everything you could have, it still may not have changed anything at all.
Yeah.
So I think with people that are kind of undergoing some PTSD issues or depression, something else one of my buddies had kind of brought up was, um, those people are unhappy because of their life choices or the lack thereof. And even with an outside influence like me trying to help somebody or something like that, it may not change how happy they are. And
Hmm.
so there's a couple things with that. So conditional happiness, don't you can't you can't use like material possessions or getting promoted to the next level in your job or buying this house, things like that, these like social status symbols that nobody actually cares about. It's just to impress people that don't care about you anyways. But those things won't make you happy. And so you have to find little things and change them in your life. And I know it's hard, especially with people that are kind of suffering from depression and
Hmm.
PTSD, to go do that. Like, we're creatures of habit. We don't want to change anything, especially, probably you're an introvert. You don't like
Yep.
to change too much. You're like, hey,
Yeah.
I like to go home. I like to throw my, my flannel pajama bottoms
Yep.
on and,
Yep. Yep.
watch TV. Like, I'm in bed by 8, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I like the routine for sure. It's
yeah,
it's
yeah,
100%.
yeah. We're creatures of habit, but um you if people are undergoing stressful situations or PTSD, things like that, you have to make life changes. You can't do the same thing over and over and expect something to change.
Hmm.
So you need to start with something small that's like reasonable. Like, don't you can't be like, oh, I need a huge massive life change, and then it just gives you more anxiety because you don't want to do it.
Yep.
You need to find some small stuff to change, some small things, make some small steps that will eventually kind of build up into something bigger and enact some positive change in your life.
Like building, like kind of
Um,
like building blocks, something to start, like a
mhm.
foundation to work with.
Yeah, yep. So start with something small.
Hmm.
Um, let's see. I don't know if they had anything. Uh, yeah. Um, yeah. Yeah, don't expect to feel different if you were repeating the same routine daily. Um, go do something. So like physical stuff, like working out or going to the gym. That's
Hmm.
just as important. It's just as important for your physical health as it is mentally. It
Hmm.
releases those endorphins, and really it can be pretty addicting. Going to the gym, go hiking, go get out in nature, do something where you can really self-reflect, and get away from the phone, get away from social media.
Hmm.
um have you ever watched The Social Dilemma? You ever
I
seen
think
that
so. Yeah,
on
that was
Netflix?
it was a documentary on Netflix, right? Yep. Definitely
Yep.
watch that.
Yeah, so it talks about social media and the kind of the negative effect it has on
Hmm.
everybody. And so, I mean, really, it's not good for you. It's this super addictive thing. It releases these endorphins in your brain. And, most people in the morning, as soon as they wake up, like, what do they need? They need a hit of these endorphins.
Hmm.
And the first thing they do is pick up their phone and look at social media. And they make these all these apps to be super addictive. They have psychologists and things like that that design colors and the sequence of these super fast images
Yeah.
to show up on your feed to make it more addictive and things like that. So yeah, get outside, get away from the phone.
Hmm.
It's not healthy for you,
Definitely
that's for
couldn't agree
sure.
more with that. I couldn't agree more with the phone and the social media. That
Yep.
That's definitely causing a big problem.
Yeah. So, and what's kind of interesting about that is they talk about the increase in suicide rates,
Hmm.
and it directly correlates with the introduction of social media. I mean, it's like
Hmm.
it's insane,
Yeah.
especially teenage girls. Because they look at social media and they see, all these women on social media and they believe this is what they need to look like. And
Yeah.
it creates this huge issue. But yeah, let's see. Um, yeah, just the small things. I think you need to find something daily that makes you happy, you
Hmm.
know, that provides some sort of happiness in your life. Get out in the sun, do something, you
Yeah.
know, even if and regardless of how small it is, you need to start doing something to enact some change in your life if you're having depression issues.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about the things that you're mentioning here is they're all for yourself. The things that are causing the depression and the anxiety you're getting from other people, whether it be seeing them on social media, just social media itself being provided to you, all of these outside influences that are causing these. You're talking about getting out in nature, doing stuff for yourself, working out. Those are all
Yep.
things that you can generate your own happiness instead of relying on some kind of product to do that.
Yep. Um, so I've always said this, like with especially some of my subordinates, that I
Mhm.
was like training and stuff like that. Time is the most precious commodity there is. You can't buy it and you can't get wasted time back. So you have to
Mhm.
use it wisely. Uh, so yeah, you really need to realize what sort of return on investment time has. And so
Mhm.
like if you're constantly just sitting around watching TV or playing video games or social media and things like that, like it's definitely you're not getting that time back. And
Mhm.
so I might be a little bit morbid about it, but I think about it like this, like if I were on my deathbed, right, and I had this like time to reflect on my life and like what I invested my time into,
Mhm.
guess what I'm not going to say? I wish I played more video games. I wish I sat on the fucking couch more. I
Yeah.
wish I had surfed Instagram more. Cuz like
Exactly.
at the end of the day, like what actually matters, like relationships with people you love,
Mhm.
people that love you, um and life experiences. Life's super short. Like you got to get out and enjoy it and try to do some things. Yeah, I mean regardless of how little,
Absolutely.
uh to make you happy. So, yeah.
That's awesome, man. I like that. I like it.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound too morbid to me. I think that's advice that more people should take.
Yeah. Yeah, working. Yeah,
Mhm.
guess what? I'm not, these,
Yeah.
and they're like people that are like slaves to their jobs. Like,
Mhm.
dude, you could
Nope.
be gone tomorrow, and they don't give a shit about you. Like,
Mhm.
that
It,
that big business, that big corporation, whatever else, they're gonna keep on trucking, dude.
oh
They're gonna
yeah.
keep trucking without you, and they don't care. So,
It's all a machine,
well,
man. It's a
yeah,
machine that won't stop.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they might care. There might be individuals that care about you, but like,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying don't work hard. It's like I got no issues with that, but the time, the time suck of like what you're investing your time
Yeah.
into. There has to be a return on investment, just like money.
Definitely.
So, yep. Um, let's see what else. What else did some friends and family talk to me about?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think you had mentioned it on another podcast. Obviously, we're not professional or health professionals.
Right.
And I think it's important. Like if you're having serious issues, you need to go talk to somebody, whether it's just like a chaplain, you know, a psychologist or something like that. Like you need to go do it, seek some
Mhm.
help. So I think a lot of people have probably considered suicide, maybe not for a serious solution, but I think a lot of people, especially in like the soft community, have probably thought about it before.
Yeah.
And so um, if you've ever considered it as a logical or a serious solution to your problems, like you need to see somebody. So kind of how I look at that too is if it's a permanent solution to temporary problems.
Hmm.
And so what does tomorrow hold for you? Like, could you meet the love of your life tomorrow? Could you possibly like have a kid tomorrow? Something like that. You don't know what tomorrow holds, and if you just end today abruptly,
Yeah.
you'll never have the ability to possibly experience those things.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of that's one thing I'd like to kind of mention about the people going through tough times. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, just don't come up with a permanent solution to
Hmm.
temporary problems.
Well, yeah, and definitely the therapy, like we were talking about earlier, it's whether or not it does affect your career. You know what I mean? They try to tell
Yeah.
you it doesn't, and
Yep.
whether it does or it doesn't, um,
Yeah.
it's important. It's more important than the career that you have your mental health and that you're not going to end your life and all of those
Yeah.
things
I
ahead
mean,
of you. You know?
yeah. I mean, there's people, there's psychologists and stuff that you can talk to kind of on the down low. Like there's
Yeah.
definitely people you can talk to, that have no obligation to report anything to your chain of command. And
Yep.
so there's ways to get around it.
Hmm.
Without that stuff ending up in your med pros or whatever else,
Definitely.
if that's the
Definitely.
case. But yep. If I chew gum, can you hear that on the mic? Is that going to be super annoying?
No, I think I
Okay,
have
cool.
it. I think I have the settings to where it won't pick up crazy noise like that. So
Okay, all
should
right,
be fine.
cool. Yeah, because I drank a ton of coffee. Now I've got coffee breath and
Yeah. Yeah.
need
It's
some
all good.
need some
It's all
gum.
good.
Yep. um. hmm, Let's see what else. I'm trying to see if yeah, yeah, with the time thing, like I don't think people won't realize how important somebody is until they're gone. Um
Hmm.
and so they don't realize it until they've gone through something really adverse like that. Uh and so hopefully some people can kind of listen to my story and learn from my mistakes, and start investing some more time into the people that they love. um Obviously, like I've got some regrets and things like that, and I would have done a lot of things differently when it came to my relationship with my brother.
Hmm.
um I always thought he was, especially in retrospect, like I had always thought he was a way better brother to me than I was to him, and
Hmm.
obviously that cost me everything. And so people kind of need to look at that and like listen to what I'm telling them, and try to invest more time into people that they care about, because you never know,
I agree.
um yeah, life can change in the blink of an eye, and it might not even be suicide or anything like that. Might be like a car crash, or
Hmm.
who knows. um Especially when all this crazy health stuff is going on right now with COVID and all this other crazy shit. But
Well, and
stuff could change pretty quick.
well, I don't know about you too, but when my situation happened to our family,
Mhm.
it was, sometimes I would think about, oh geez, what if that was my brother? What if that was my sister? What if that was my wife? You know
Yep.
what I mean? And they were terrible thoughts, but they were thoughts that I couldn't help but having, like, if this happened to them, how would I feel too? You know what I mean? What can I do to prevent that from happening again to anyone in my family? You know, and that's, I mean, partially that's how this was all, this podcast and TWNY, that's kind of how it got started. But um but yeah, it's definitely got to take care of the ones you love, and reach out to them.
Yep. Um, yeah, maybe that's something uh, I can kind of help you out. Something we can look into is like help that especially like service members can look into completely offline.
Hmm.
And people that aren't even related to the military, like aren't part of the military health system, because I think that I think is the one of the biggest issues. Either they know, like service members know that it could possibly affect their career,
Hmm.
um, and so they either know that or they think it might, and somebody in their chain of command might find out about it. And so I think it is important to have something there, some sort of support,
Yeah,
that's discreet. So yeah, that's something we can probably talk about later and look into maybe, as far as like helping people out, especially service members.
definitely.
Yep. Um, well, what else?
Man, I don't know. We're getting into some good stuff here. I
Yep.
honestly would kind of like to talk a little bit about, ideas for um what soldiers could do. You know, offline stuff like, I don't even, honestly, I don't even know, because I know that they want to do this. The army wants to fix this problem too, but there's only so much they can do, like we've talked about. Um, for me, we so we're sponsored by BetterHelp, right? And I'm not going to do an ad read right now. I already have my own pre-recorded one, but that is it is like a personalized deal that they're not going to reach out to anybody. It's not like you're, going on some kind of file and people can access that and know that you're receiving any kind of, medical treatment or anything like that. I feel like we could do more things like that, have more access to things like that for service members, for just people in general.
Yep. So what's BetterHelp? Is that just a self-referred like counseling
Yeah.
type thing,
So,
or what is that?
well, yeah. It's a service that you basically can get in contact with a therapist. They have like, I don't know, something like 20,000, 22,000 like actual licensed therapists that
Mhm.
provide their services to BetterHelp. So, say I wanted to sign up for it, I
Mhm.
would get access to a therapist. And if it doesn't work for me, I can switch therapists as many times as I want until I find one that works. Um, but you're able to text them when you need to text them, and you can do video calls with them. Um, so, and that's on your own time, so it's not like you're having to carve time out of your day to go, meet a therapist, or out of your work day to go meet a therapist. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Because that affects your job if you have to leave your job to go to do your therapy. I've had someone on the podcast who, luckily, his job that he worked at, or he works at FedEx, they actually gave him time out of their day. Like, they used the manager's office for him to do therapy.
Yep.
So not a lot of jobs do that though. So I feel like more things like that are more convenient, I guess, is what they should be focused on, because that's not having the time, because, oh, if I leave work I'm going to get in trouble, or
Yep.
I just can't find the time to leave work. Work's more important. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I feel like those are also some reasons that people don't utilize the service, because it's just not convenient.
Yep. Yep. No, good point.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through here to see if there's anything like real big
Hmm.
that I want to talk about some more. Damn, there was something on here. I can't remember what it was though. Mm, oh yeah. Okay, this is what it was.
Okay.
So, um, yeah, something with suicide. I think it's a little easier now because everybody has phones, and so there's so much of an greater ability to like record and like video people and take photos and things like that.
Hmm.
Um, but if you end up losing somebody, especially like really close to them, and I haven't personally had this happen to me, but I spoke with somebody else that had actually lost a brother as well, and he had told me to try to compile all the videos and audio of him, which I did. However, he told me the reason for doing it was because eventually, years down the road, you'll start forgetting like what they sound like, um, kind of how they behaved, how they laughed,
Hmm.
and things like that. So it's important to kind of keep those memories alive. And like, I don't know, it might it might not be like a completely like healthy thing to like go back and review those, but it probably is. Like I want to try to remember
Yeah.
that person. Um, so that was one thing. And then um, I actually had a buddy. So I did some time in a specialty platoon at 375, and I had a buddy show up there that had gone through RASP with my brother,
Hmm.
and he was actually hesitant to like talk to me about it because he thought it was going to be like so painful for me to hear about it,
Hmm.
and which was stupid because really I would want to hear like how he impacted other people's lives, especially because he was super funny,
Oh, definitely.
super funny dude. He was like class clowning all the time, and so it was one of those things I wanted to like kind of try to keep his memory alive, but this
Hmm.
this one dude, he was like hesitant to share those experiences with my brother. He was hesitant to share those with me because he thought it was going to be too painful for me to hear him. And and anybody that's listening right now, if you knew somebody that had committed suicide, I would highly suggest sharing, those good stories with their families, and their friends because, um, yeah, it's beneficial and they would want to.
Yeah.
Okay,
Keep the memory
so
alive.
yeah, yeah, for sure. That was
Yeah.
that was definitely one of the things I wanted to talk about. There's not too much else on here
No, that's all right,
that
man.
we hadn't covered, but um, yeah, I think one of the other big things was that, and I kind of touched on it before, was that, like it doesn't matter how strong or like intelligent you think that person is, that took, and that's like your image of them,
Hmm.
that took their life, because like, yeah, their demons are not yours, not your own. And so to be able to like fully comprehend why they made that decision, I mean, I'm not going to be able to. Like I have some ideas of like why he did that, and
Hmm.
like I know why he did. However, like they all those things were like temporary problems, and so to like go through with it, because of these issues in his life, I don't think I'll ever be able to like fully comprehend that. So
Yeah.
I don't think you should be mad at those people that do that. Um, I think you just need to fully understand that you may not comprehend why they did that, why they took that choice, why they took that way out. So that's just something I think a lot of people in the aftermath of suicide, especially, they'll have to be able to come to terms with coping with that for the rest
Yeah.
of their lives. So, and I think, you probably think that way, especially with your cousin Ashley. And,
Yeah.
I think you probably have some ideas like why she did it, but you won't be able to comprehend like
You'd never be able
why.
to fully understand what drove them to do it. And that is
Yeah.
hard. That is really hard to cope with, because I hate
Yeah.
not knowing things, and especially when it's about something like that. That is hard to think about. It's hard to cope with. Um, well, hey man, normally when I start to wind down the podcasts, I usually ask the guest if they have any specific pieces of advice. Whether it's something they would give themselves, like if there was advice for themselves, 10 years ago, or that way someone reading that might, or hearing that might benefit from it, or if it's just advice for people in general. You've given a lot of pieces of advice in this. It seems like every kind of section we talked about, there was an overarching kind of piece of advice that went with it. But if you did have anything that you wanted to reiterate, or any other pieces of advice that you had thought about.
Ooh, some stuff that I haven't talked about yet.
Yeah.
Probably not.
And that's okay, because like I said, you had some good stuff already as far as advice goes, and things to think about.
Yeah, just the time thing. Like, yeah, use it wisely.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously, again, we're not health professionals, so if you're really having some troubles, go seek some help. But what I would say is that kind of just like final words is what I would say is start with little changes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, start with little changes in your life to enact some positive change. And whether it's like even going to do like a small workout or something, like go do it. You have to start small to just like enact some healthy change in your life. So yeah, we're creatures of habit for sure, and like people don't like huge change, but if you're doing the same thing in your life over and over and over and expecting something to change, it's not going to happen.
It's just not going to work.
No. So it's like, what do they say about the definition of insanity? It's like doing the same thing but expecting different results. Yeah. And it's just, so it's not going to happen. You got to start doing like little things here and there. Like, even if it's like, hey, if you're like I don't know, video game person, like you invest a bunch of time into that, like start cutting like even 10 minutes off playing video games and like go chill outside, go sit outside, go do something. Like, even if it's like scrubbing 10 minutes off of that time that you're usually like using to play video games or whatever else, have one less drink, at dinner, every night. Like, you can start small and it'll start kind of snowballing into bigger things where it's, before you know it, it's like, oh shit, okay, I'm living like a pretty healthy lifestyle and it's super positive. But you got to start somewhere. So start with those baby steps.
Absolutely, man.
Yep. So
well Chris, thanks for coming on the podcast, man. Thank you for sharing your story. That can't be easy. Like you said, trauma is not an easy thing for some people to discuss, especially on that level. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Well, it's like lifting weights. It's probably a lot easier to lift all that heavy weight when you have other people to help you do it. So it's the same thing with depression and trauma. You kind of have to share it to help either get over it or help overcome obstacles. So
kind of a mental health spotter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, thanks, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, thanks for listening. If you haven't yet, check out our shop at www.twny.life. We have sweaters, shirts, hats, and much more. Stay strong out there, because this world needs you. And I'll see you next time.
Because of me, because of time, and what's alive, because of you. because of you.